So, from the Pucking Panthers Podcast, I'm Taylor, and with me is Rob Tallas, goalie coach for the Florida Panthers. How you doing, Rob?
Good. I can see Ryan was scared to make it today.
Yeah.
It's just you and me.
Yeah, I think Ryan's getting a little nervous, so that's fine. So what are you doing today?
Well, today, you know what? Lou's a pretty strict player as far as what he wants and movement and stuff like that. And a lot of times this time of year, guys get on the ice and they practice for about 20 minutes and then they scrimmage, just kind of get the flow of things. But for a goalie, the scrimmage gets a little loosey-goosey and you pick up some bad habits. So we've been at it here for about a month now where it's just strictly goalie movement, being real strict. The style that he plays, he's very consistent with his movements and stuff like that. So we just try to really just hammer him out here until the season starts. He's good to go.
Okay. So is that the majority of them is going to be drills rather than the live action type stuff?
Yeah, like we only use half the zone, and it's mostly more technical drills, and then we try to, this time of year now, this week and a little bit at the end of last week, we try to open it up a little bit more and get some flow and some players in there, but more control, where guys aren't kind of screwing around, and it's fun. You get I remember the Mike Weavers out there the day all of a sudden trying to dangle on breakaways, and you're like, it's just not going to happen, So we try to keep everything controlled and game-like and kind of more on a serious level, even though it's this time of year, but that's the way Lou likes it, so.
Cool. He lives down here, right?
Yeah, this is home for him. I mean, this was always going to be home for him, I think, and so this is kind of just coming back to a place that he wants to be, and his wife and family are from here, so it's a perfect situation for him.
Okay. And so, and you guys said that you've been at it a month.
Yeah, you know what? Most goalies, take the summers off, and then they usually mid-August they start getting on the ice, and same thing, kind of with their goalie coaches back home or wherever they are for a couple of weeks, and then they kind of get into the practices. Lou's one of the guys that gets on before anybody else. I bet you he was the first NHL goalie on the ice in summer. Last summer, same thing. Start of August, he gets on, and that's part of his training and his makeup, and that's one reason I think of many of why he's so good.
Yeah, that fitness level. I mean, let's go into that one.
Yeah, he's so consistent with the way. You know what he is? He's smart. He knows what he needs, and he doesn't go above and beyond. He just details the work and puts in a lot of work. Like for a goalie to be on the ice for an hour doing a lesson is just extremely hard. Like practice, you get your downtime. Coach talks to the board and this that. To go straight for an hour, it bags you. And we've been doing that for a while now. And there's good days and there's some rough days, but it's a tough thing to do. But he's a workhorse, and that's kind of his makeup.
Right. Do you ever strap on the pads along there with him, or do you just sit?
Well, you're getting to something. I know you are, but I don't put on the pads. I wear forward skates because I move around a lot. I like to shoot 200 goalies, like even for warm up, and we have a game day routine, and so a lot of times it's easier to move on forward skates. So I really don't put on the pads anymore. I don't play men's league. They got a couple years back with Markstrom's gear didn't get in time, so they ended up ordering me gear at that time. So that's the only reason I have my gear, and I actually gave my gear to a younger kid here to break it in. I didn't even wear it. But I have it. We bring it on emergencies. Getting to your next question, I can imagine.
You know what I'm getting at, and I want you to walk me through what happened against Toronto when both Montoya and Lou went down with injuries.
It was just the craziest thing. You know what? When Lou got hurt, and going back to that day, Lou, that was a hard shot Lou took. A lot of people don't know. I mean, it's healed and it's in, but he broke a bone in his shoulder. He came back and he played. I like to say that. I told people that, the second half of the season there, the end part, he was playing with injections, and it was a break. It was a break in the lower part, and kind of a fluky shot, and it was more serious than just a bruise or anything like that. And so, when he went down, it happened before. If a guy goes down, a lot of times I sit up top during the game, and then I come down in between periods and with our coaching staff. But when a guy gets hurt and he's out, or in the dressing room or on the table, I'll stay in the locker room just in case. But just in case never happens. Right? So all of a sudden, I was in my office kind of getting settled, and our video coach ran in and said, Monty got hurt. And I thought he was joking. Okay, so I kind of setting up. He's like, no, for real, he's hurt. So then I kind of came in, and it was an overwhelming feeling, like this is not happening, you know. So all of a sudden they came in, and there was so much confusion. Like, and for my sake, that was good because the ref came over, I guess, to our head coach and said, hey, you know, you need a goalie. And the old rules were you could dress a player. You can't anymore. So you have to have like a PTO type. There's all this stuff. So he said, well, our goalie coach, you know, used to play, and so the ref said, go dress Rob. Tell Rob he's got 15, 20 minutes to get on the ice. So that was the official words. And then my hands were like this, and I'm thinking, the only thought I was really going through my head was like, if I step on the ice, I don't wear goalie skates. So my first 3-4 strides are going to be like, I'm going to be all over the place. I might fall.
As you're skating out.
Yeah. So that's going to start it. So anyway, so as I'm getting ready, you know, the ref came back and said, no, Rob can't go in, dress a player. So then Derek McKenzie came in the locker room and said, hey, during the lockout, I played as a goalie, I can do this. So he starts getting dressed, and I'm like, time out. I'm pretty sure your agent doesn't want you putting on gear right now, because if you get injured, it could be serious. So there was some confusion on our part. I mean, it's never happened. So, and I kind of knew the rules from before with the Markstrom situation, that I knew that I had to sign a piece of paper. So by the time everything kind of got settled, the league had called back and said, okay, we got a verbal agreement that Rob can get dressed, so now get dressed. So now it's on. So I was kind of like, I'm freaking out. I really am. I'm like, all right, here we go.
When was your last game before that?
Oh, 2000. I got hurt. I got hurt when I was 30, so I'm 40. So it was 12 years ago. I got hurt, and then I kind of went back and tried to play in Europe a little bit, but it wasn't the same. I actually suffered a heart attack playing.
Oh, really?
It was very, yeah. So that's,
sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it was a long time ago. It was kind of, I had a blood clot, so it's been a long time. So I don't play.
Yeah.
So getting to that tunnel, I knew Lou was coming back because he had to go to the hospital. Most guys get injured, they can kind of stay in the room, but we knew they saw a break, so that he had to go. So I knew he was coming back, and I knew that he could still dress. He's frozen now, this and that, because it's a break. It's not like a tear where we could do more damage, but we knew where he was at. But they're like, get in the hallway, because if Monty goes down completely, like you have to go in. So
watching him main goal out there though, and he had a going goal, right?
Yeah.
And he was just out there just like static. He could barely move.
Exactly. You know what? It's a terrible situation for him to be in, and he, you know, gave his all that game. For Lou to come back and put his gear on, like, I mean, he was in street clothes. We saw him in the hallway there, and to come back and try to finish the game, and such an important game of the season.
Yeah.
For my sake, I was extremely happy that I didn't have to go in. But it was a tough situation. I thought the Panthers did an absolute amazing job. At first, when they said that we're going to do a goalie for the day thing, I was kind of like, you know, we're in this playoff race. We're right there. We really don't have time for this. And Peter Luco and the staff and Brandon Moeller and all those guys that Justin put that together in such a short amount of time and have that response. It was amazing. It was an amazing day. I had so much. Yeah, it was great PR. But I actually had, you know what, you're seeing, you know, 65-year-old men that came from Red Deer, Alberta, that told their family, we're not having a family vacation this year because me and my friends are going to this tryout, dream come true, and laying on the ice with tears in their eyes, that's the level it got to. So I thought it was actually an incredible event, and it turned out to be a pretty good thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It really was.
They really turned that around like better than probably any NHL team could.
And in such a short amount of time during a season, like you could have really Mickey Moused it and did a lot of wrong things, and they did an amazing job. We were getting letters from Japan, from all over Europe, from Australia, like, how real is this? I'll quit my job right now and I'll come. Like it was amazing when we said, hey, like there's rules with what we can dress and have as a third string and all that, of course. But how they created it for that day and the media that those guys got and the feeling that they got. Like I got letters from them in the summertime in Texas, like still saying like, you know, that was the best day of my life. It was just, you guys like made us feel like we were like the top professional athletes in the world, like with ESPN and all the coverage and everything. It was awesome. It was awesome.
That really was.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so we actually haven't gotten to Montoya yet. I do want to discuss with you because, you know, obviously last year he didn't perform as well as he did in Winnipeg. You know, he came in and I think we were all excited to have him as backup. He's young guy still. He can move around very well. Where do you see him projected this year? I don't mean statistics. I mean, do you ever see him taking on more games than he did last year?
You know what, I think that Monty was put in a hard situation last year. I think in Winnipeg he played. He got to play some games. Coming in last year, Lou had a really good start last year. And his numbers were really good, and our schedule was spread out. Where all of a sudden, Monty sat a little bit. And you know what? And he played great his first couple of games. In Washington, we lost I think 2-1 in a shootout. But great game. He played, and then in relief too. Every time he came in, he played really well early on. And then I think as the season went on, what happens is you're watching a very structured goalie every day, and you're not playing. So you tend to find yourself mimicking and copying that guy. That's not his game. He's not a structured goalie. It's hard to say. He's a fast reflex. He's a guy that can dive and make saves. And he went into Anaheim and played unbelievable and won that game. And so when he's on and everything's going great. I think last year was difficult for him. He now gets behind a structured goalie. He's watching every night. Kind of wants to play like that calmness. That's not in his game. He's kind of a controlled chaos kind of goalie, and that's how he gets things done. So when we talked about that over the summer, you've got to be you. You can't be someone else. You can take certain things that guys do, but you can't try to change your entire game and play like someone you're not. You got to play. If you're going to copy and mimic someone, copy and mimic Jonathan Quick, who can play with that style and that energy and be way out of his net and recover. So I think it was a good talk this summer about that. I think he has to understand that and hopefully play some more. Our schedule's pretty easy too. It's spaced out. We don't have a lot of back-to-backs. And you know what? And I think, but we do need to fit him in, and we need to pull Lou back a little bit. Sometimes, we've had some coaching change around here, so you get new coaches in too that, they've got a good feeling with their number one guy and they want to keep rolling them too. So, sometimes you get overplaying a guy.
Yeah.
And it's a hard, because when the guy's playing well, he wants to play too. And you're telling him, hey, listen, you're playing good, but we're going to sit in that. But they don't want to hear that too. So there's a bit of a jugglement there that we got to do. But for Monty's sake, I think he was here a couple weeks ago. We got on the ice. He looked great. He's healthy. Last year, no excuses, but he had a baby in the middle of the season, and I think that threw him off a little bit. We were out west, so he didn't travel with the team. He came, and he got to Calgary the night before, and that was a tough game. He ended up getting a win, but I think, you look at his record, a couple of those losses were games that he went into, too. They weren't starts. So I think if we kind of dust that stuff away and look at all the positives that he had and look at his starts, our expectations and my expectations and his as well are a lot higher, a lot higher for this year. And we need him. I think as you look at teams that make the playoffs, and when we make the playoffs, your backup has to get the double digits in wins. It's a big part of it. Sometimes they feel, I was a backup, you feel like, you're just kind of giving your number one a night off and you're going to go and give your best effort. And that's the old way of thinking. Now you've got to think, I've got to get wins, and how do I get them? And the wins come on back-to-back nights. They come in tough situations. Sometimes you're playing against the better team. Sometimes, bad travel, something happens, and all of a sudden you're kind of stuck there where everybody's tired from the night before, or a shootout game the night before, and now you're going into, a certain building with a great record. But you know what? Those are nights that you've got to steal the games for us, and he's capable of doing that. That's one thing he is. He's got that speed and that athletic part of his game where he can win games.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's the type of kid who could rely on instinct.
He can, and he has to. I think that was the main thing that we kind of talked about last week. He can't fall into this whole structure. There's structure within his game. I'm not saying he throws up, but he can't change, the athletic part of his game and think he's going to be structured. He's way too good of a goalie to kind of put him in the box, I guess you would say. So, I think that's the approach. And last year you're working with him and you're on the ice. A lot of people think, as my job is to change him. And at this level, these are the best athletes in the world. They got here. I didn't have them when they were 10 years old and work them all the way up. So your job, in a sense, is emotionally be there for them. It's an up and down season. You think they're invincible, and it's the most stressful position. So you're constantly talking to them. But I think most importantly is you're trying to find habits of them. You're trying to watch them every single night where something sneaks in and say, hey, wait a second, that's not you. Get it out. And that's hard to do, get things out. And it's hard, you know, when you're just kind of getting, I've known Lou for a long time, so I know him inside out. So as soon as something sneaks in, we can talk about it and it's gone. You know, Monty, last year, you're trying to feel a guy out, and then we kind of, as the season goes, and the guy that's not playing a lot, it's hard to recognize. You know, in practice, we talk a lot of times saying, you know, what do we need to work on today? It's hard when you haven't played for a month. You know, like you usually work on things that come from the game. So, you know, you're just trying to keep him in shape, tuned, so he's ready to go. So I think that it's a difficult position being the backup. It's hard to get in there and feel comfortable every time when you're not playing much.
Yeah. You seem excited to get Monty back out there.
I am, you know why? Because I know he's better than his record showed last year. I know he's a lot better than that. And I think this year, you know, we need both guys playing well. And I think this year the schedule fits out where we can get him some more games. And you know, he's confident. He looked awesome the other day. So, you know, it's just fun to get the season and be back around Spies again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, maybe a final question. Have you worked with any of the goalie prospects in the Panthers system?
You know what, like, not really, because that was a big thing. I don't get down to the minor league side. Like, it's hard. Like, for the first couple of years there, I would go down, but I'd be down for 5 days. So it's in 5 days, you're just kind of keeping tabs on guys, and it's extremely hard. And a lot of NHL teams were doing that then. Now you see every NHL team has a minor league guy, because it's a development league, and you want them to play games and you want to answer questions, but then there's no quick fixes. So it's very difficult, and sometimes, you know, you take the heat for certain developments and you're like, I'm not part of that development as much as I want to be.
Nowhere near.
Yeah, it really isn't. So last year, I was going to be back on that, like, okay, we're going to send you down, this, that, and Lou was like, no way. And he was like, you know, I want him here full time. We need that full time. So Pierre Prue, who was here before, who was in Montreal, is a friend of mine, worked with Carey Price, is an outstanding guy. He's very detailed and stuff. So we were lucky enough to hire him last year. He went down last year, and he works with our minor league guys and part of all of our development, our college guys and this and that. So he gets to see them, talk to them more on a regular basis, where now I can just focus on these guys and not have that, you know, trying to watch, you know, an AHL game at 11 o'clock at night.
You're doing two jobs.
Yeah, and it's unfair to the guys in the minors to when they need help or want to ask questions, and you've watched a period of this stuff at 11 o'clock at night trying to catch up. It's no teams are doing it now. It's just too difficult.
Yeah. So who would you say would probably be the number 3 goalie if you had to pick? Based on, you know, what you've seen, what you've heard.
Well, right now you gotta always stay with your veteran guys. So McKenna's the guy right now that we have in our system, and you know, this year, and he's an older guy. He's played a lot of games. He's got the most experience. So you know, I watched his game too last year when he got called up to play against Colorado. There's 2 teams that I think in this league that are going to be extremely hard to get called up and play against. Colorado being one of them, and sometimes in Tampa Bay. And I say that on the fact that they're such skilled teams, and their structure of play is very difficult for a goalie to play against. And there's a couple other teams out there, but they don't shoot the puck along the net. And when they do, it's a scoring chance. And they kind of hold on to it. You can go to Chicago and big teams like that, but there's a lot of structure in their game. So you kind of know the game you're getting. And their skill might beat you on certain plays, but the game has a lot of structure. When you play those teams, they're very loosey-goosey kind of all over, and it's hard for goalies. So, you know, he had a tough game against Colorado, but again, tough situation. And against a tough team, I'd like to see him play against a Boston who's got tons of structure, and I bet you the outcome would be a lot better for him. So he's kind of, I would say he's our 3rd guy right now for sure. Sam Britton made huge strides last year. He was called up here when Monty was having his baby. He was with us for a while and played extremely well as far as practice, and then went down, got some games in the AHL, played extremely well. So this is his first real season in the AHL where he can kind of establish himself. I like, personally, like, for development, I like to see guys play. I want to see Sam Britton with, you know, 150 AHL games before he gets called up. That's ideal, you know. Obviously, certain situations is not always going to be that way, but so he's got a lot of development to do. And then, you know, obviously we got Colin Stevens now. We'll see how he fares out. I haven't really seen much of him. You know, kind of he came from college, and so this will be a big year for him too. First year real pro starting. And then the kid that we drafted this year, that Samuel Montoya, He was hurt during development camp. I watched all of his game tape with Pierre. I talked to Freddie Brathwaite during the Team Canada. I saw Freddie Brathwaite the other week, and there's nothing but good things about this kid. So
You've got a starting gig for Canada in the juniors.
Yeah. For him, it's going to be, this kid is could be special. You know, he's got a lot of development. He's a little bit older now. So you know, this will be a big year for junior for him. And you know what? But he's got a real upside. I'm excited to watch him play this coming week.
Me too.
Yeah, it'll be our first time kind of seeing him live. So, but everybody we talked to is just boasted about this kid. So hopefully he'll be, you know, in the Panther jersey sooner than later.
All right.